Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. Welcome to our November 27, 2023 meeting. Roll call. All members of council are present and accounted for. I'll ask everyone to please stand for the Territorial Land Acknowledgement Statement and moment of reflection, followed by the national anthem.
Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé des Anishinaabe et les terres traditionnelles des peuples Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat et Kenyan-Kahaka. Nous reconnaissons notre obligation commune de respecter, d'honorer et de préserver ces terres et les ressources naturelles qu'elles contiennent.
Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much. Item 4, adjonction, effacement ou modification. Je ne crois pas qu'il y en a, Madame la greffière. Non. Item 5, adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as presented. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Seeing, hearing none. Item 7, adoption of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes as presented. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Ternosky, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8, présentation, il n'y en a pas. Item 9, delegations, we have none. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. Item A, declaration de Maison Interlude. B, request for community grants from the Parks and Recreation Department from the 2023 budget. Item C, minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee of August 16, 2023. Item D, minutes of the Attainable and Affordable Housing Committee of September 9, 2023. Item E, minutes of the Community Diversity and Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee, September 12, 2023. Item F, minutes of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee of October 26, 2023. Item G, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board of October 19, 2023. And item H, pay list for October 2023. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the floor. Moved by Councillor Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Any questions? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 11, rapport des départements et comités du Conseil. Item A, demande de retrait de l'application du contrôle des parties des lots PD 2023, voire numéro 16 au règlement. 936, 942 et 947, 953, rue Cologne à Russell. Questions, commentaires? Questions, comments on item A? Hearing, seeing none. Anything from the administration, Tad? Monsieur Boudreau?
Non, Monsieur le maire, merci.
Merci. Item B, bylaw dedicating lands as public highway, Freeborg Street in Embrun, Report PD 54, 2023. That council receive Report PD 54, 2023, dated November 27, 2023, and adopt the proposed bylaw dedicating blocks 57 of Plan 50M 351 and 116 of Plan 50M 313 of Plan Subdivision 50M 372 as a public highway, and that the bylaw be registered on title. Questions, comments, members of council? Hearing, seeing none. Anything from the administration, Dad? Monsieur Boudreau?
No comments, Monsieur le maire.
Parfait, merci. Next item, C, politique de vente du terrain industriel, rapport EcoDev 05-2023. Item C, the council receive report EcoDev 05-2023, dated November 27, 2023, and 1, adopt the proposed bylaw to update the industrial land sale policy, and 2, repeal the previous bylaw 2019-061 for the sale of industrial land. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Tanoski?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. J'ai quelques questions. Premièrement, sur l'analyse financière qui nous a été présentée, on ne prend pas en compte le temps, peut-être c'est juste pas assez, mais on ne prend pas en compte le temps d'administration, d'administrer quand on fait des ventes, legal costs, like internal staff time, all that. Is that something that should be part of the analysis?
Okay, thank you. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le maire. So those fees are actually considered in the analysis. If you look at, there's a line for legal fees and surveying, and there's another line for admin fees.
Okay.
Those essentially are other operational costs to be able to
Apologies.
open and close some sales.
Okay. You mentioned you had a couple of questions?
Yeah. So in the process in the process that we've always used, in the same process, we rate purchase the value when people want to purchase in terms of there's a scoring system, and we do discount when they're shovel ready or the closer they are to develop. And I'm wondering, do we provide any kind of process to rate size of potential employer and stuff like that in evaluating them in terms of the score, in terms of the value that they bring to the municipality?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau?
Oui, merci, Councillor Tonarski. Oui, effectivement, c'est des nouveaux standards qui vont être révisés justement, non seulement pour l'employeur, mais aussi la rémunération des salaires par l'entremise de ces nouvelles employeurs. Alors, évidemment.
Ça fait partie de notre système.
Oui, c'est ça, pour choisir les entreprises.
OK. Merci.
Parfait. D'autres questions? Other questions? Councillor Deacon?
I have a couple of questions. Just so that we're clear, the blue area south of the proposed Emile Street, is that currently owned by Township?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau?
Just wanted to, you're referring to the map on the...
Yeah, sorry, Appendix 4, I believe it is. It's designated future phase south of Emile.
Monsieur... Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le maire. So yes, just to confirm, we do, this is a land that we just purchased recently over the last year.
Okay, thank you. If I can have a couple more questions. I understand, according to the ministry, that the provincial ministry, MECP, that we're required to have 20 meters of buffer around those residential properties on ED Road, according to the lightest industrial use, if I'm correct?
Class. I believe that's the minimum standard.
Yeah. So, okay. So the line on to the right of that in red, would that be the maximum buffer that there would be? I believe that's at 70 meters.
I believe the map, it shows...
Oh, sorry, 300 meters.
300
70 and 300.
I think it shows, correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Boudreau, but I'm thinking it's showing the 3 minimum depending on the class, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Exactly. We tried to display the 3 classes, class 1, 2, and 3, which have 20, 70, and 300 meters.
Okay.
Okay.
And one more follow-up, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
The green buffer, then, as I understand, that would be buffer around those residences. It's 20 meters from the back of the property or 20 meters from the road?
So
For
the line is
clarification.
at, sorry.
Monsieur Boudreau.
Sorry.
So the line was measured from 20 meters from the back of the property lines and not
Okay.
from the road.
Thank you.
Okay. D'autres questions, commentaires? Councillor Lalonde?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking at the, some of the documentation that was attached, and in there's, in the report to council, there were some questions, I guess, that were raised by residents and answers were given, and I just wanted clarification on one of the answers given, where it talks about the connection from Imar Road to Edie Road, and whether that access was necessary. Excuse me, the answer given is that a connection was necessary, required for emergency access. So does that assessment come to us from fire, or from what source does that requirement for emergency access come from?
Thank you very much. Monsieur Godin, or Monsieur Bourgon, I believe that's a county standard. We see it in our subdivisions when we're creating new subdivisions, correct? That it has to be 2 access points?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So exactly. So above, like a cul-de-sac cannot be more than X amount of meters. So you cannot create, like, so you need that second access. So like you, Mr. Mayor just mentioned, same thing applies for any subdivision. So you need a second access.
Okay. Follow-up, Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at that map that was also provided, I mean, we have an access into the area from Burton Road. We have one, actually 2 from Burton Road and 1 from Rang Saint-Guillaume. So when you say minimum 2 access, is it at that end of the park in particular? Because there are other access points. There's also one proposed south in phase 2 at the bottom. So I see 2 or 3 or so. I'm wondering why the one at Edie Road is also required.
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, if we don't have that access, it would create a dead end over a kilometer long. So we need that second access point because it's such a long stretch.
Next question, Conseiller Laurent?
Yeah, I'm just gonna I'm gonna touch on that point as well. It's because I know when we first started moving westerly, that question was asked about access onto Edie, and at no point at that point in time did we say there was going to be an access on Edie, and in fact, it was an emphatic no, there wouldn't be an access onto Edie. So I'm just trying to understand what has changed, because I thought everything was going to go up either up to Burton Road as much as possible, and that we were not going to Edie Road.
Monsieur Godin? Not sure who wants to take this one. I don't recall that aspect of it, but
Merci, Mr. Mayor. I don't recall that aspect of it either. So I'm not sure how to respond to that. So was that a discussion that occurred?
That was discussion at council. Now I don't know which council
Right.
that discussion happened, but I know that it was asked at some point in time about, when we start moving closer, and the answer was no, we will not be going that way with the road. The road will always be maintained within the actual industrial park and out onto the current road. So I'm surprised to see that there is an access point being proposed onto Edie Road.
okay, thank you. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, from a planning perspective, is there any reasoning why the road would be going this way?
Essentially, it's as my colleague Jonathan mentioned, we try to have at least a minimum of 2 access on long stretches. It's not, I haven't seen any specific reports that it has to be on that specific roads. But this is a concept plan of this area, so this is what we're showing council tonight. But it's not, the road doesn't really exist for the time being, and I believe it can be modified if needed, if that's the case. But this is the concept plan that was provided to work with to establish the amount of acreage to maximize the land available for sale.
Right, because you want to make sure that you have access on both sides of the road as opposed to just one side.
That's correct.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Lalonde?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then it's not inconceivable at some point, as things develop, that a second road might be considered over in between the yellow and the blue area that would take the Amal Street up to Burton Road as well. Is there a chance that could happen?
Potentially, but just looking at the map, depending where that road is made, then you would be going through private property, which we do not own. So then you would be talking about having to expropriate a piece of property to the north to be able to put a road through there. Councillor Deakin?
Just while we're looking at the road as well, I was wondering if I could, if my memory could be refreshed in terms of the weight of trucks on Edie Road, and if Edie Road has been studied in terms of its durability against industrial level trucks.
That would be Monsieur Bourgon.
So at this time, 80 Road is still a no truck route. We will be looking at the intersections for the design of the road. Like I've mentioned in the past, I believe to council, that piece of road could remain potentially no truck route. That's always an option.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can just, or a minimum improvement for the MR to the intersection of Burton.
Okay.
Can I understand what that would mean? If that were a no truck route, that would mean that the heavy trucks would still need to go over to Saint Guillaume, and that would be mostly for emergency or smaller vehicles?
It would be Saint Guillaume or Burton Road.
Well, exactly. All the other access for the heavy truck or any delivery trucks. So that access will be for like workers and emergency vehicles.
Okay. Councillor Deakin?
Thank you. Just another question on the buffer. I was in touch with staff earlier today around what the process would be to see that land that's in green change over time. My understanding is it would need to be rezoned. And if I understand from today's exchanges, the land would not be sold. It would be, I guess, if I see it as not sold, it would be retained by the municipality. So I'm just wondering, when would we expect to see a report come to council on that? If it's a rezoning report or otherwise, and would there be any plans to consult with local residences on that buffer zone and what it would look like, what purpose it would serve? This is where we get into the regulations a bit, but I'm just wondering, because it's going to be their vicinity, and I know that there are concerns from residents about the behind the properties in particular.
So, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, would there require buffer zones require a change in the
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we are undertaking the official plan review within the next few months, which will entitle public house, open house, and obviously a decision from council. Okay. Those policies or new policies will provide a better framework as how to set these berms. And also, when we are selling land for new development, before a new development happens, we need to go through a site plan application, which will deal based on the type of industry, the type of distance mitigation measures that need to be put in place in order to ensure that there's no, or reduce the conflicts between the sensitive use and the industrial use. So it's more of a, when we get into that stage, we'll have a better understanding as what is needed to mitigate the residential use with the new park.
So I'm understanding that there would be a few opportunities for public comment input into the official plan as well as other opportunities.
That's correct. And also, in completing our official plan amendment or new official plan, we'll also update our zoning bylaw amendment. So again, we need to change the zone in that area. So it may be a thing that will come out of these meetings and recommendation as to have maybe a lesser industrial or lighter industrial use at the western portion of the park, given there is a presence of houses along that road. So one a possible solution.
Okay.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Not a problem. And just a follow-up to that, we're able, depending on how the zoning goes, specifically because we own the lands as well, that makes it that much easier to control what's going in there. If the lands are owned on the private sector, there's less control onto what can go there. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct. And also with the criteria of who we pick as an enterprise or business is also an advantage for the municipality to ensure we're not putting a business that will create major problems.
Right. Okay, further questions? Councillor Lalonde?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm encouraged to hear, I know we're working on the official plan, and I might be getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm thinking with the timing of the work that's going to take place on the official plan in the coming months, and now that we're able to see a little more of what the vision is and getting us closer to Edie Road and maybe the opportunity to preserve and protect with buffering or with the township owning the property, controlling the type of business that goes in there, and recognizing that maybe it's been quite some time since there's been any sort of public type town hall on the park itself, which I think the last one, correct me if I'm wrong, was 10, 12 years ago or so. I'm going to suggest, or I'm going to ask that maybe, you know, in terms of the timing of the official plan and when it would be the best time to maybe hold a town hall on what now is the vision for the park going forward, a sort of an update or refreshed sort of town hall as to where it goes next, because, you know, the challenge is there are properties along that area for sure, but by the same token, I've come to understand and appreciate how valuable, from a taxation perspective, the park is to all of the residents of the township, and how important it is to us that it does grow to the extent that as it grows, and in the hope that it grows in a controlled fashion, it has a very positive effect on space. And as a taxpayer myself, I want to be reassured that that's the case. So I'm just going to leave it maybe out there that if we could somehow tie in a town hall on specifically on the vision going forward at this point for the industrial park, at the same time as we're working on the official plan, I would encourage that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great opportunity to, because normally during an official plan process, we do have some kind of education session. I remember in the past, we have an open house with boards and indicating all the areas and all the changes and that kind of stuff. Monsieur Boudreau?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. There are some procedures under the Planning Act which we need to follow. Obviously, it's the United Counties that will have the final approval on that document, so there are steps we need to follow, but certainly there is an open house session before council has a decision on the final official plan. And right now, this open house is expected at late spring. It's not the agenda or it's not established fully, but that's what we're aiming as a time and date for that.
Okay. So just to come back to this report in particular, the land designation has already been changed. It's already been approved by the province. So it's not a discussion about land designation. This report is very much we have a sale of land policy, and we're looking at confirming what the sale price of these properties will be and the new criteria moving forward. Is that correct, Monsieur Godin?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Councillor Deacon?
I'd just like to echo Councillor Lalonde's suggestion for a town hall, and I think it's great timing that we are looking at the official plan at the same time. I do think that a specific one on the industrial park would be worthwhile. So that's just my 2 cents on that one. And for the sale of the land that we're looking at tonight in particular, I'd like to understand the Emau Street. We can't put anything. We can't sell that land on those 2 blue blocks north and south of Emau, east of Edie, until that road is constructed. Correct?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, I think, or Monsieur Bourgon, I believe there's still works that need to be completed on a municipal drain. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So, like Councillor Deacon just mentioned, we need to build the road so those property has frontage on public highway. So yeah, so for construction, we still have work to do on the municipal drain, finalize the design. So there's a bit of work to do. So construction, we're looking at 2025 for that stretch of the property.
Okay. We talked maybe at the possibility, maybe the road goes to the north towards Burton. I know that's not our property, but possibly a discussion with that property owner to see if they'd be interested in allowing some kind of deal for a road to go through their property.
We just need to keep in mind, sorry, true, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
We need to keep in mind that property doesn't have the proper designation at this time. It's still ag land.
Right, but I'm talking for the road portion only at this point in time. So,
But just mentioning that there's not the same
designation for that property, yeah. Okay. Councillor Deacon?
Thank you. One last question. So I'd like to understand the benefit of including those 2 blue pieces of land north and south of Emau in this land sale policy tonight. What are the benefits of that? What are the drawbacks of that? I know that we're repealing potentially the 2019 one, so I'm just thinking, the report that we have is already from last year as well. So we would be looking at a report that's over 3 years old. How likely is it that we're even going maybe to see a new land sale policy by the time we are selling that land?
Monsieur Godin, I think the reason this is moving so fast is just the pressures that we've seen, the amount of growth we've seen in the industrial park over the last few years. I'm not sure how long it'll take to sell this.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not sure I don't know how long it will take to sell this. We do have a waiting list for businesses interested in buying properties here. Our land sale policy is suggested in the policy that we do review it regularly every year, at least for the price side. And I don't think it's unwise to look at the other portions of it regularly as well. I do anticipate that the policy will come back to council before we do get to that future phase in blue. And if that's a request from council, we can make sure that does happen as well.
Okay. Councillor Lorrain and then Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think it makes sense that we include all properties that we own in that area in any policy that we're gonna pass. And then as I think as we've seen over the years, the price has gone from A to B to C to D, and finally we're getting to a point where I think the price ought to have been a little while back, in my opinion, my humble opinion, that the prices should have been a little bit higher. But we understood the realities of that area, that time, and the fact that we're moving more from a cost recovery to now a revenue in that area for building the roads and doing the fiber optics and doing all that stuff, that there's now a little bit of a cost recovery versus just buying the land and selling it at a very discounted rate just to get back to breaking even. So from a policy perspective, I think it makes sense that you include all lands in that area. And then if you have that on your to-do list on an annual basis to look at the policy and see if we can increase the value of those of that price over time, then I think that's a very prudent thing to do. So I think we should be including all lands in that area in the policy. So then you don't have to change the policy. You just change the dollar value. You don't have to change the designation of each different block or parcel. So I think that would be my reasoning of it, is that you don't have to, this parcel is at this price and this parcel is at this price, and that doesn't make sense in that way, to me anyway. I think it makes sense that we do it this way, and then you change the price as you go. And it's a time frame, not a parcel, so.
Okay. Councillor Deacon?
That makes sense to me. In that regard, I think that there's concern from members of the public that I've heard from in the last couple of days about what this means moving forward for their neighborhood, their vicinity. And we're really just putting a land sale price on it. We're not taking away any future possibilities of changing plans, of receiving input, of doing further studies as the council may request. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. Ultimately, it's council's decision where this industrial park goes. Yeah, for sure. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Mr. Mayor. So that's correct, Councilor Deacon. Essentially, we're just updating the price, cost, and the criteria that's being used to select the businesses. It is enabling us now to start selling those lands in the phase 3 area. And to reassure council as well, every time we do sell lands, we will bring a report to council for each and every sale, where you'll have the business case and the information to make that decision whether you want to move forward with the sale or not.
And I think as we see those reports come forward, we'll be able to see where along the map, how far and how close we're getting to that blue portion.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, did you want? Councillor Tarnowski?
Seeing the number of residents here, can I propose that we suspend the rules of procedure and have question period for this specific item right now?
Yeah, so we have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure to allow residents a question period, not a comment period, but a question period on this item, seconded by Councillor Deacon. All those in favor? Carried. So is there anything else, Monsieur Godin, you want to add before we get to a question period on this item?
No, merci, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anything else from members of council? So if I invite anyone who has a question on this report in regards to the criteria and the criteria and the sell price, to please come up to the lectern and state your name and address for the record and ask a question.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Bradley. I live at 159 Edie. My property is identified in this green area. In October 2021, this council passed bylaw 2021-090 to sell land for new build, to build a super factory in our backyard. I'm wondering what happened with that bylaw. I haven't seen it repealed as yet. I'm also wondering what assurances we should really take from this council, given that you were prepared to put a super factory in our backyard.
Okay. I can tell you on behalf of New Build is still trying to move forward with their project. So for those who don't know, New Build is basically, for lack of a better example, is like a Tesla factory that builds homes. Not mobile homes, but modular homes. So they build modular homes, so I believe they can build up to 5,000 homes a year. So in a market that we hear about affordable housing and we hear about a housing crisis, we have a committee specifically for affordable housing. So they are still lobbying the provincial and the federal governments to be able to move that project forward. So at this point in time, there was a bylaw that was passed. However, correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Godin, the sale never went through because the conditions were not lifted. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. So that's where that is. Any other questions on the agenda on this?
Hi. Hello, my name's Douglas Azer. I own some property adjacent to the ED Road. Is there a public listing of how much was paid for the land, or from different developers or different owners?
Yeah, every time there's a purchase and sale, that's done through bylaw, and it's a public record, yes.
It is, so it's quite available then? and
Yes.
stuff? And from, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The second part of my question was related to why should we have confidence in the choices that this town council makes in terms of what gets placed in our backyards?
I don't think that's a question I can give you a valid answer for. Next question? Councillor Lorraine, you'd like to address that?
In response to that question, I think it's, the answer for me right now is pretty simple. We were elected to do this job and to make decisions for the municipality for the best interest of all the residents. And that's what we do day in and day out at this table. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Doug Esterbooks, I own land adjacent to.
Sorry, I didn't get the name and
Doug
address.
Esterbooks, I own property next to Edie Road,
The address, please.
580 Route 100.
Thank you.
How do you propose monitoring who the first purchaser sells to? Do you propose to maintain control over those properties until I'm dead? In other words, are you going to dictate who can buy the land after the first purchaser purchases it?
You mean after a business establishes themselves
Exactly.
and they decide?
What happens then?
No. No, we don't have control. After the property is sold, it's like any residential home. It's like any other property
Okay.
that can be sold. And for example, as I mentioned earlier, we currently own the land. If we didn't own the land, any other person can sell that land the same way. What we control as a municipality is what is allowed in that zoning. Therefore, if we sell a piece of property for a certain type of business and another business wants to come in, they have to follow our zoning bylaw to make sure that they're allowed to be there, that business is allowed to be in that designation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Lorraine?
There's one other aspect to that, Mr. Boudreau, you can correct me if I make a mistake on that, but currently, if somebody does purchase a parcel of land in the industrial park, they have a specific amount of time to actually build on that land. During that time, before they build, they cannot sell that land to anybody else, is that correct?
Monsieur Boudreau, just add to that though, the land we currently own.
Yes.
Yes, Monsieur Boudreau, part of our sale agreement.
That is correct. They have a specific time frame to respect and also condition related to that. But also would like to add that if a new owner purchase a business that's built and operated and wish to enlarge that building for a new type of use, there's still need to comply to zoning and also site plan agreement that we can put new measures to control if ever that's needed.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Next question?
Hi, my name is Jen. I live at 998 Notre Dame Street. I'm fairly new to this discussion, so I apologize if this is covered in previous notes or the long agenda. I was just curious, it's kind of kitty corner to that type of question, is just going forward, I see that the Liberal government currently, and whatever government comes after, is very concerned about carbon emission. So I'm wondering if long-term there is a plan in place to limit the type of infrastructure that can be used, the land can be used for, just in case there is some form of carbon tax that comes down at a municipal level. I'm just wondering if there is a concern about that going forward, or if there is a concern about manufacturing or like water use in like an ecological kind of setting for this land use.
So not part of this report, but Monsieur Bourgon, I know we, part of our strategic plan is to have a climate action plan.
Yeah, that's correct. But our action plan will look at things or operation of the municipality.
Right. And as well, just to clarify that the building code, if there's any changes to the building code that have emissions or climate considerations, that's through the building code when they create their new building, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm not sure if the changes are implemented or it's coming along, but I've heard from the province that there will be some mechanism in the building code for
Right. And
to meet the zero target.
yeah, which a lot of new constructions are doing specifically because they know that'll be brought down in the near future. Okay.
Harry Baker, 208 Forest Road. If you're looking for a route to go to Burton Road, why not consider the parcel, the boundary between Part 1 and Part 2 on the north side of Amar? You own right up to Boundary Road.
That's correct.
To Burton Road. You don't need to buy from another owner.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that would allow Emall Street to be a dead end all the way to ED Road if there wasn't, if we went up and turned, I'll say a 90-degree or at that point in time, but that is something that the staff can look at. Any other questions?
Mary Chartrand, 183 Hamilton Road. So there's a waiting list for people to come in to the industrial park?
Yeah, there's been a waiting list for a number of years.
So, and when we purchase property, how are the properties divided?
That's up to the township, based on the requirement of the purchasers.
buyer.
Yeah.
And when we sell a property, are we selling it at cost? Or do we make a profit?
Well, I can tell you that the amount of funds in taxation received every year from a commercial or industrial business is much higher than an empty vacant lot. So yes, so Monsieur Godin will be able to fill in this plan specifically, and the report talks about cost recovery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, there is an appendix for the financial analysis which demonstrates that we're selling the lands at a cost to be able to recover the purchase price of the land, plus all the construction of roads and other utilities. And we are counting on revenues from taxation to be able to take care of the asset management of all those assets.
Yeah, I think if I remember one of the comprehensive reports years ago, for every acre that we develop, it generates about $10,000 worth of taxation revenue.
Over how long?
Every year.
Every year?
Yeah, taxation is in perpetuity. Like you build your house, you pay taxes. These businesses build, they pay taxes forever.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Laurent, you wanted to make?
I just wanted to add something to that. I mean, as the years go by, I've been on council since '06, many election campaigns, many people talking about the deficiency in commercial and industrial taxes. And this is something that we're trying to alleviate, is that dependency on residential taxes. So this is part of that process. So I hope that's understood here, that we're trying to increase that reliance on the commercial industrial tax base, not the residential tax base.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, perfect example, we saw it in this year's budget. In we didn't sell any land in the industrial park for 2022, I believe it was, or 2023, and we saw a drop in our forecasted growth by almost half. So that makes a significant impact.
Harry Baker, 208 Forest Road. How handicapped are you that there's no sewage line going to this park now, that you're not going to be able to look after their wastewater treatment?
Yep. So in that regards, all the businesses that that will be coming in are well aware of that fact. And there's actually new technologies out there. I was actually in Belleville at New Terra plant, which has facilities that basically the size of a shipping container that can recycle all that stuff. So it's pretty amazing where technology is going nowadays.
And you're proposing that for them, or it's up to them to find?
Oh, that's up to. I mean, that's one example, but it's okay. Really up to as long as they're meeting ministry standards. Correct, Monsieur Bourgault?
Would we be allowed to use one of those in our residential area?
You could be the first.
Mary Chartrand, 183 Hamilton Road. One more question. This is the plan today. Is there any intention of expanding that further north or south?
I will say most likely in the future, yeah, everything expands. So, I mean, I can't tell you exactly at this point in time. In this case, if we look back at phase 1, Then it went phase 2, went westbound, phase 3. We know that on the other side of Burden Road, there's properties there that are in the city of Ottawa. They're looking to expand their land as well. So, I mean, it's circumstances of the day. Same thing when we expand our village boundaries. It's, you know, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and often it happens. It's who's the property owner and they're interested in actually developing the land or not.
Okay. Not really happy about that. I have to say, but.
No, I understand. Nobody likes change, right? I can say that, however, that from a municipal standpoint, we can't have, it's impossible to have high services, low taxes, and what's my third one here, Monsieur Godin? It's slipping my mind. You know what I'm referring to. Low density. It's impossible to have low density, low taxes, and high services. 2 out of 3 is how it works.
It just seems like there's a lot happening very quickly in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I can't disagree. So,
I don't disagree with change. I just, because I always say if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. So, but it's how much are we moving forward, and are we taking a real good look at how we're moving forward? And I know staff and everybody works hard. You're all taking a lot of time out of your lives to do this. But as a longtime resident, I've seen a lot happen in this township.
yep.
And
So, question period?
okay, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Question? Yep.
For the new industrial area, will water use be a consideration when you approve what's coming in, or?
So we've had that discussion at council whether we're bringing water services in. At this point in time in these areas, Monsieur Godin, there's no intention to bring water. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So those phases identified here, phase 3 and even a future phase just to the west of it, there's no intention to bring water.
But my question is, if you have an intense water use, it's going to affect the people around you. So that's my question. If you have an industrial area that uses a lot of water, or an industrial plant that uses tons of water, it may affect neighboring areas.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Monsieur Bourgon, would you like to speak to that? Obviously, as the approval authority for the businesses going in there, that's something to consider, the amount of water that a business would take.
Yeah, exactly. There, like we look at the type of usage as well. So with what we're proposing, it would be low water usage for those
businesses.
Those businesses coming up. If we would have like a big consumer, well, that's when maybe the servicing question could resurface for other properties on the east side of St. Guillaume.
East side or to the south, as we see in that other.
Along Route 100. Well, what council supported a few
Right.
months ago.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Deacon?
I'd just like clarification on that last point from Monsieur Bourgon. If the low water usage forms part of the criteria for selection for the businesses, or whether it is across the board, they must be low water usage.
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, I think wants to take that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So essentially, when businesses approach us, they ask what type of surface we have to offer them, and that will kind of dictate if they want to buy or not the property. So right now, if there's no water, depending on their type of business, that kind of will eliminate or make them buy the property. As we've seen in most of the existing property or businesses in the park, you see lots of warehousing, which does not require a lot of water. So essentially, we don't really need to. It's more the businesses that will buy or not versus as what type of service we have.
It will be a factor for them.
Oh,
If
for
there
sure.
if there's not enough if there's not enough water usage for their business, they're not going to put themselves in that situation.
That is correct. They need to confirm that, and if there was to be a lot of water, then the province has a threshold as to the amount of water is being taken. They need a permit from the province to ensure that it doesn't create any issues. We also have the power to ask for hydrogeological studies for businesses to ensure if we have a doubt that it will cause an impact on the surrounding properties.
Okay, perfect. Follow up, Councillor Deacon.
As that power rests with the township, I'm just wondering what sort of criteria you look at when you ask for a hydrogeological study? Like what are the triggers that would compel the administration to invoke that power?
So, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau.
So yeah, so when there's a business that is purchasing, obviously we want to know what type of land use they're proposing on the site. And through site plan agreement, we also have South Nation Conservation that is part of the process to comment on these businesses. When we need expertise related to water, then we awfully take their guidance as if an hydro-G would be required or not for that business.
Thank you. Further questions?
There's not just the issue of how much water is being taken, but also the issue of infiltration. So the size of the building and what impact it has in terms of how water is absorbed into the ground. So
The question?
what is the plan for that?
So, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, Monsieur Bourgon, that's through the process?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, exactly like any other businesses, through the site plan, we have that power to request for further studies if needed. This land use was approved by the United Counties of Prescott and Russell for the trading industry, and that's one of their criteria that was looked at to see if that property were candidate to go into that designation. So that process was verified. But if further studies are required or verification, we are there to request for more help, either from consultant or for South Nation to guide us on these questions.
And when you make reference to the study, you're talking about the comprehensive review that we did where we hired outside consultants?
We hired an outside consultant, depending if there's the type of business that we might not be familiar with, we might ask for a little bit more information to validate what is given to us from the
No,
businesses.
sorry, I was making reference to the comprehensive review as to the designation of these lands.
Sorry, yes, that's correct. That was done through the comprehensive review. Correct.
Thank you.
Did that
Question?
comprehensive review include all of the lands currently being looked at here?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau?
Yes, that all properties that were redesignated have been done through the comprehensive review of the United Counties, Prescott and Russell.
Thank you.
Before, repeat.
Question? Yeah, please.
Um, It sounds to me from the consultation you had a couple of weeks ago, where the staff was receiving questions from interested neighbors, that a lot of monitoring is going to go on after this all happens. A lot of monitoring is going on. How do you monitor how much water is either drilled for in that park and how much is used, let alone discarded? Another monitor? How do you propose to monitor that?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon, I think we establish how, when it goes in, correct?
Yeah, and the well permits are monitored by the ministry and or South Nation as well, so we do rely on their support for those type of installation.
Okay, thank you.
And what's the difference between high and low water usage? Is there someplace I can look online to tell me what the minimum maximum might be to qualify for either minimal usage or maximum usage?
Monsieur Bourgon, do you know I don't expect that you know it off the top of your head, but you know where it could be found, that's a ministry qualification as far as low or high?
And to be able to provide like proper flow, I would need to come back with the answer.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we're considering how much water is being taken and what the implications are for infiltration on a case-by-case basis as we sell the land, per purchaser, who's looking at the whole? In other words, after you add all those things up, including the folks that are already in the existing park and continue to expand, what is the overall impact?
Okay. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the lot size of these property is one of the factors that will influence what size is needed based on the use of the land in order to manage not only the water, but the wastewater coming out of of that business. So they need to meet the building code. And also, as stated, the site plan application is an opportunity for the municipality to request for further studies if needed. And as mentioned, the South Nation does participate to these consultation, and we rely on their guidance to request or not further studies based on their analysis.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, David Skinner, 219 Edie Road. Last little question for that. What's the capacity, water output capacity of that total area?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon, they're on an aquifer, correct?
Yeah, they are. It's all underground water.
Okay.
Okay, so that was just to finish up the last question. My question is, we've gotten to this point, and I would like to know why the township does not have a policy of informing the residents or the people that are adjacent to the property, either by a letter, somebody coming and knocking on the door. I mean, the municipality knows where we are. They find us every year right around tax time. Twice a year, actually. So that's the first question.
So let me address that question.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Boudreau. The provincial policy statement provides the process for notifications. Is that correct?
We work under the Planning Act.
Planning
which
Act, my
requires some of
apologies.
the minimum. As of today, only the trade and industry policy through the United Counties was amended. So they follow the Planning Act. We're going to reach that process through our own official plan, which we will follow the Planning Act process, which will certainly involve either through our website or other mechanism to advise people of what's being proposed.
Yeah. So and that would be part of our newsletter system, our subscription email.
That could be one of the ways that we can reach the Planning Act provides a certain minimum, but we can go beyond that.
And that, yeah. So I encourage everybody, if you're not registered with the township for a subscription newsletter, I recommend you do that as well.
Yeah.
You can find all sorts of information there.
But that's basically calling the fire department after the house is burnt down, because this is a fait accompli, is it not? Just to clarify, this is going to go forward?
The land designation has been approved, yes.
That's correct. Now, just to clarify, township went to counties and said, we would like to change the land use designation, correct?
So Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, that was part of the comprehensive
So
review process of the United Counties?
That's correct. So the counties, through their official plan, ask each municipality to provide a report to council as to what is needed for their town. And we've done, as mentioned, via consultant, a comprehensive review report and submitted that to the counties for them to consider. And ultimately, a decision was made by the county of Prescott and Russell, but it was approved by the province with some changes. So the province had the final say as to what goes in or what goes out. So that was the process that was followed at that time under the Planning Act, all the regulations.
And just to clarify, it's not just changes to the industrial park that were made during that comprehensive review. There was areas throughout the entire township.
The old township, sorry, Mr. Mayor, but yeah, the old township, so we've seen areas that were changed from rural to agriculture. Some were changed from agriculture to settlement areas. Some were changed from agriculture to trade and industry. So the whole county, and obviously the township was look into that process.
Yeah, and looking back at previous official plans, 2016, 2010, that's a similar process at every official plan. Conseiller Laurent?
And Mr. Mayor, just because this happens a lot at the planning meeting as well, I just want to make sure that for tonight that we understand that the report is dealing strictly with the land sale policy and not the land designation policy. Right, so that the land designation has been done a while back now,
Yeah.
right?
I would like to know why we don't have a policy that.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, because you made the comment of, well, this is all a fait accompli. Well, that was already done.
Yes.
That's not tonight, right?
I understand.
Okay,
That's
I just
our
wanted to
point.
clarify that point.
Just to clarify, Jamie, the way we found out about the way the road coming up was there was a surveyor driving stakes into the land.
Okay.
And respectfully, that I don't think is a fair way to do it.
Right.
That's just
So can the township improve on its communication skills? 100%.
100%.
Yep.
And we promise that we will not hide from you. Just send us a letter and say, you know, I think it was either 3 or 4 of you said, we should have an open house meeting to discuss the grand plan of what we are going to do for.
So
the
my
industrial
suggestion
park.
is subscribe, and you will get that notification.
Yes.
You know, because realistically, if you're expecting us to go knock on the door and hand a letter every time we're making decisions in this township,
I
it will be a lot of registered mail or
Yeah.
hand knocking.
Now.
Question.
When a developer puts up a sign or wants to change the land use of a lot, he has to put a sign up. Why does the township not have to do that?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, that's a planning question.
Yes, absolutely, that's correct. So depending on the type of development, so the Planning Act does have regulations which require certain mechanism of publication. We got to, and we will certainly, the township, via the planning, follow these regulation to a minimum, that's for sure, and probably will go beyond that. But we've got to remember that the official plan was done through the counties. They had the mandate to provide the communication based on the Planning Act, so that was not a municipal-driven change via the Planning Act process. We will do our own via the official plan, as stated earlier.
Monsieur Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, can we just remind people about the decorum in the room, please, and to avoid making loud laughing noises when comments are being made by staff? To answer a question from a member of the public, please.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councillor Lorrain. Like our code of conduct for municipal councillors, our procedural bylaw also has a code of conduct for members of the public in the audience. So I would ask everybody to be respectful of everyone, and we'll move this process forward.
Excellent. Good. Thank you for
Thank
my
you.
time.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a few more questions. Normally, we have 15 minutes. We've already gone half hour, and we have some other business to attend to this evening. Question, please, on this report?
A couple of weeks ago, this council was deciding on an encroachment policy, and you made a decision about how you were going to communicate with residents.
Okay, Madame?
I would
In
like to
regard-
know what you decided in terms of how you were going to communicate with residents about the encroachment policy.
Okay, that's not the issue at hand. We're talking
It is
about...
my question because it relates
It-
directly to how you engage with the people of this community.
Okay, it's not in regards to this report. Next question?
I was privileged to attend a meeting a few weeks ago with your staff and recorded it. And basically, how do I describe it?
Question?
The question is, what do you propose to do with respect to what appeared in that report versus what I heard that evening during discussions? What I saw in the report was opposite, a direct opposite of what I heard during the conversations. What do you propose to do to correct that report so that you actually see what we discussed?
Okay, perception is everything. Monsieur Godin, would you like to address that?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. About that meeting a couple of weeks ago, we were contacted with a lot of questions about the development in the industrial park. So we offered to meet with the resident in question as well as anybody who wanted to join. So we did our best to answer questions. I understand the responses weren't always what was hoped for. And we did our best to convey the message in this report as far as what the impacts are of updating our land sale policy. And we feel like our report does address that. I understand, though, that some residents are worried and have serious concerns about development going up to their lands. But for this report here, we're really talking about updating our land sale policy. And we've invited the residents to come to this meeting as well to voice their questions directly to council as well so that everybody's on board.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions?
My understanding is that the areas in yellow and blue remain agricultural as per our own township official plan. So why are we having a discussion about this particular policy when this land is still agricultural?
So correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Boudreau, but our policy has to follow the official plan policy. And with the official plan at the county level being approved, this falls under their designation as trade and industry?
That is correct. So through the official plan that we will undertake, we have to meet the official plan of the county. So by default, these lands will be within the trade and industry policy area of our own official plan.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
I'm going to clarify one thing. Just want to make sure that I am on the same page as everybody else here. What was just said means, to clarify, that this is a fait accompli.
The
Yes.
land designation, yes, as stated previously, it was
Yeah.
approved through the United Counties official plan.
There we go. And this will become an industrial park.
That is correct.
Okay.
Conseiller Lorrain?
But that is not what we are doing here tonight.
I understand.
Okay, just,
want to make sure that we're on the same page, that this is going to be an industrial park.
I don't think anyone said it wasn't.
No. And just to clarify, I mean, the expansion of the industrial park has been a topic of discussion since I was on council, started in 2010, I think probably your time as well.
When I started on council, we were developing the purple on the right, on the far right.
Yeah. And it was
So-
always discussion about expanding the park.
Correct.
It was part of the 2008, before my time, but they had a 20-year vision, 2028 vision plan, if I remember well, back in the day, and that came up in that vision was to expand the park. Question?
Hi, Candace Vetter here with CGRO Radio. I'm just listening to everybody talking, and I'm a little bit worried, concerned. I mean, confused would be a better word.
So what's the question?
So if the UCPR designates something as whatever they choose to designate it, in this case, trade and industry, does that mean that you have to zone it that way, or do you have a choice?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, I believe we don't have a choice, correct?
That is correct. We don't have a choice. That decision, the final decision was taken by the province of Ontario. That was approved by the province via the recommendation of the counties. And by default, we need the zoning and official plan to match these designation from the official plan.
Which is approved by the county, submitted by the counties and approved by the province.
That's correct.
Okay, and so does that mean that every change that the upper county makes, smaller municipalities have to follow? Is that like throughout the province?
Yes, Monsieur Boudreau, that's province-wide.
That is correct. We have the option of including these parcels through our official plan or not, because right now the official plan only takes, for Russell, only take account the settlement areas and the industrial, trade and industry. We don't cover the agricultural land, but it is under the official plan of the counties, which we need to follow.
So if you wanted to change other agricultural land, could you do that?
Through the United Counties that would need to submit that to the province for
So you'd
approval.
have to have an amendment to the official plan? Is that
At the
how that
county level, I
process-
believe so, Monsieur Boudreau.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I heard you refer to back in the day. Did you own those two properties that you purchased last year at that time, back in the day? Did those residents realize that the expansion of that park was going to affect? Should they have known that it could potentially affect where they lived?
I think I can say that
Back in the
the
day.
parcels of land were purchased in the last few years, Monsieur Godin. In that sense, though, the park could have expanded without township owning. The people that own that land could have developed that area just as easily. So it's like where I live, I was happy having two lots empty next to me for 10, 15 years. And I didn't own the land. Somebody developed the land. I lost my view, but, that's just the reality.
So the difference was either the township owns it or Patno develops it, right?
Oh, there's more than one landowner in that industrial
Two,
park.
from what I understood. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think, whoever owned it, everybody has an opportunity to own land. I think we can't hold it against people who own a lot of land, because I know a lot of farmers who own a lot of land, and I don't see us holding it against them, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Another 6 minutes?
Will you consider not adopting this policy and holding off until you have had an opportunity to do the official plan?
I will say, from my perspective, that can be the direction of council, but I have no entertainment in postponing this policy and postponing sales of land at this point in time. Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, I guess I'm confused by the question. Right, I could understand if it was a land designation or a zoning of the land issue, but this is a land sale policy issue for the price of the land that we're going to be selling it for. Why would we hold off on that?
I think the intention is to not sell any land until the official plan is done.
And we know that the official plan must meet the county's official plan,
That is
which
correct.
means it will be converted to trade and industry.
That's correct. And I think as well is that when we've seen traditionally the sale of land, they have 2 years to build. So by the time they actually construct and finalize construction, the official plan would have been approved by then, correct, Monsieur Boudreau?
That is the intention, to have the official plan adopted before. Yep.
Correct. Councillor Deakin?
I just want to get some clarification on those two blue sections north and south of Emar in terms of the buffering. If we do go ahead with the land sale policy tonight, does that mean that we are setting the minimum buffer as is according to the different levels, or will that
No.
come back to council and we would be able to influence the buffering?
Yeah, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau, there's no, this is not in any way approving that buffering zone as is, correct? That's just showing minimum provincial standards. However, council will have the ability to increase buffering if we so choose.
That is correct. We have the opportunity to put specific provision or whatever we desire as that is reasonable into our policies and zoning to reflect future sales of these lands. But as stated earlier, we will have to change that to a trade and industry by default.
Yeah, so it'll be through the zoning and the official plan process for these.
Correct.
Okay, follow up?
That's assuming that the land is not sold before the official plan is finalized. Am I understanding that correctly?
Monsieur Boudreau?
Well, technically, in order for a new builder or company to build, they need to comply to zoning. So if we're not fast enough, they need to go through their own submission of zoning requests or official plan amendment requests. So that's...
And through our site plan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just as a follow-up, then, we would be able to, at that point, regardless of zoning, determine if we wanted to expand those buffer minimums according to, that could be a direction of council specifically?
Monsieur
at any
Godin,
point?
Monsieur Boudreau, oui.
I think that's the perfect timing to tackle these questions as to how we want to set the boundaries and whatever type of businesses and class of business or industrial use to be set on which portion of this park.
Right. I think as well we have to remember that even, for example, somebody's buying one of those blue parcels that it's abutting the parcel or the residential area, does not mean that the building is built at the property line. If they build 20 acres, it could be the building could be completely to the east side, and it could be, for example, a parking lot that's going up to the buffer zone, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So there's mitigation measures which are called. So as you stated, the parking or even set their own buffer to given on the type of uses that is there. So they have to meet the criteria of the province, which suggests a number of measures to mitigate, or just to go further away. If they don't meet those measures, technically they should be buying lands further away from the sensible use.
Okay. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. I would just like to add for our calculation of the finance for the park, we did not take account the portion of the buffer zone. So in terms of possible land of like what we can sell, that's not included in that acreage. So what you see in front of, like,
Oh,
that
green.
green portion, that's excluded.
It's excluded from the buffer zone is excluded from the,
Which is
I
the
just want to make sure that that's clear that's how we used our acreage for the financial business plan that's presented tonight.
okay, thank you very much. Final question?
My understanding of the official plan for the township is that it guides how our community it manages its development. And so the reason why I'm asking that question about the land policy, land sale policy, is that I don't understand why we would be setting a price and then selling property when we haven't even made a decision about how we are collectively managing our development.
Okay.
So my question again is, why are we making this decision on this outside of the official planning process?
Okay. Councillor Lorraine, you want to speak to that?
I have a question for staff on that. If somebody were to come to purchase a parcel of land tomorrow in our industrial park, what price would they be paying for it per acre?
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So if this policy is adopted, they would.
No, if they're not, if
we
it's
don't
not
adopt
adopted.
Our current policy is at $45,000 an acre.
Okay. So that $55,000 per acre is what it would cost us to delay any
Making-
decision that we make tonight
Monsieur Godin, that's correct?
and affect your business plan.
Through Mr. Mayor, so yes, definitely, if we sell land at $45,000 an acre, it would affect our business plan by $55,000.
Per acre.
Per acre.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Tarnowski?
And just to remind me, on the budget side of things, we have monies that are expecting still in this fiscal for sale of land that we haven't done because we've been waiting for this policy to go through. And it's a substantial amount of money that's not necessarily impacting the operational side, but.
Monsieur Godin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, Councilor Tarnowski. So there was, I think, 85 acres projected to be sold in the 2023 budget, so just over $8 million.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we've already given 3 times the amount of time for our question period. Before we, Councillor Deacon?
I'd just like to make a comment if I could.
Go ahead.
Just acknowledging all of the time and effort that's gone into preparing for this meeting, both on the part of my fellow councillors, the administration, as well as the members of the public. This is part of a longer conversation, I think, that needs to happen. So to recapitulate, I'm wondering if this evening as a council we can direct staff in a more firm way to commit to ongoing discussions with public involving their input around the future of the industrial park.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Deacon. So I'm fine. Monsieur Godin, you've heard a lot of discussion this evening. Monsieur Boudreau, as mentioned, this will be a topic during our official plan. Can we make sure that this is being well advertised on our website and our social media posts and across our newsletters that this process will be coming forward at the time to have those public engagements?
Definitely, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Everybody's okay with that?
My
Councillor-
ask was to go further than just the official plan and to have a specific engagement and discussion around the industrial park specifically. Perhaps it could be a featured part of the official plan open house. I just want to get a bit of a commitment in terms of focusing on the industrial plan and inputs from the public.
Okay. So, Monsieur Godin, from what I'm hearing is that we're talking essentially about a second public house meeting specifically for the industrial park?
If possible, unless administration feels that they could handle both the official plan open house in tandem with a rigorous engagement around the industrial park.
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Boudreau?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Deacon, thank you for your question. Just to reassure that the official plan for the Township of Russell is taking into account only the settlement areas and the trade and industry. So like all of the other land use is not being looked. So it already is no major topics that, and we already have a good official plan. We just need to tweak it and update it. So if needed, I guess we could, but I feel confident that the open house we'll have and further discussion with council and reports will satisfy the need for the public to further input. And during that process, we're taking in comments either verbally or even email or whatever that's written, that's taken into consideration. So, I mean, it's going to be a lengthy process, so people have time to submit their comments and suggestions.
Okay. Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that kind of circles back to what I said earlier in the evening about, you know, the hope of a sort of a town hall refresher again. So if that can be handled through the official plan discussion as well, and you're confident you can treat it both, that's what I was sort of hoping for earlier. Just one last comment on, again, this, and maybe to Councillor Lauren's point of earlier, this was a meeting on land sale policy, not land use policy, and it's been confirmed earlier. We've confirmed it, that this is a fait accompli. These things were done years ago. I would never agree to hold up a land sale policy issue to discuss a land use policy issue, which was already resolved years ago. I don't know if people heard what was said earlier clearly, but there's a $55,000 or not 55, yeah.
There's a difference of
$55,000 loss
if we
in
stay
the
with
offing if we don't put this through. So I appreciate the concerns out on Edie Road. It's a place I've spent a lot of time on my own, looking one day for properties that we might have bought. But this is for the benefit of the township as a whole, as the mayor said as well. This is about keeping our taxes in check, and the park that gives us the opportunity to achieve that balance. So we have to be looking, again, to Councillor Lauren's point of earlier, we have to be looking at the big picture here. And I'm hoping with the town hall, you know, some of those details and the buffer zones, and maybe what I'm hoping will end up being a made in Russell municipality sort of plan for that will sort of be able to get to pretty close to where everybody would like to see this.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, it's 7:20 p.m. We'll come back. We'll take a short break and be back at 7:30. Thank you.
And not meant to last 10 years. But I still wish that people could utilize that. I mean, that was generous.
Oh, that was really generous.
Thank you very much, everyone. We will continue with the meeting. Prochain item, D, Fonds de développement de l'Est d'Ontario, rapport EcoDev 06-2023. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport EcoDev 06-2023 daté du 27 novembre 2023 et adopte le règlement proposé autorisant la signature de l'entente entre la municipalité de Russell et le ministère de Développement économique, de la création de l'emploi et du commerce. Monsieur Godin, since this is specifically related to the road we were just discussing, I just want to make sure that the grant that we're receiving of 1.5 million gives us the opportunity to possibly redirect the road within the industrial park. I'm not sure if you have an answer for me this evening, or...
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. So we didn't share the specific plans with the ministry, so as long as the money stays within the project, which is essentially the extension of the road, even if it's redirected, we can, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, so there is that flexibility there that we can redirect the road if need be. Okay, any other questions, comments on the report? It's rare that we get 1.5 million from the province, so it's a good thing. Anything to add to the report, Monsieur Godin?
Non, merci, Monsieur Mayor.
Okay. Move on to the next item. Item E, Council Remuneration Report CAO 07-2023.
It's all in French.
Yeah, okay. I was looking, threw me off. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CAO 07-2023 daté du 27 novembre 2023 et donne la directive à l'administration pour mettre en œuvre une augmentation de X des salaires du Conseil du maire dans le deuxième projet du budget 2024 à adopter le 11 décembre 2023, applicable à partir du 1er janvier 2023. Councillor Tarnowski.
Monsieur le maire, si on pourrait séparer ça, parce que je pense qu'il va y avoir une discussion là-dessus. Alors, si on pourrait séparer.
Yeah, if we could remove this item from the consent items, definitely. Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, and I think along those lines, I think we should have that discussion at that time when we're dealing with it separately rather than right now, and that way there we have all the information readily in our minds at that time.
Okay, perfect. So we'll separate that item. Item F, discretionary funding from the United Counties of Prescott and Russell, Report PR 17-2023. The Council received Report PR 17-2023 dated November 27, 2023, and approved that the amount that was used towards the operations and the purchase of equipment for the Barracuda swim team at the Russell Centennial Pool and its different swimming programs. Questions, comments, members of Council? This is standard. Every year we use the funds from the United Counties to help with the Barracudas program. Anything to add, Madame Guiton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, not at this time, but I just wanted to add that we had a very successful summer again with the Barracudas. So a lot of kids were enrolled and they had fun.
Good to hear. With that, we'll move on to the next item. Item G, communiqué consultatif sur la communauté, la diversité, l'équité et l'inclusion communautaire. Recommandation 2023-003, partenariat avec les Premières Nations de conservation de la Nation Sud afin d'obtenir des conseils sur l'aménagement paysager du complexe récréatif. Que le Conseil reçoive la recommandation 2023-003 datée du 6 novembre 2023 du Comité consultatif communautaire sur la diversité, l'équité et l'inclusion concernant l'exploration de partenariats avec les Premières Nations afin d'obtenir des conseils sur l'aménagement paysager du complexe récréatif. Councillor Deacon, did you want to speak to that one?
Thank you. This came up in a committee meeting recently and was seen as a great opportunity considering the investments that will be made into landscaping design and the opportunity to add more First Nations, Inuit, and Métis visibility into our community. I just want to be clear that in the agenda it reads as Indigenous space. We did specifically use more detailed language than that to explore partnerships with First Nations to advise on landscaping design, potentially at a specific location in the rec complex, which would be the courtyard area.
Exterior, yeah.
I did have a question for administration on this, having read the naming policy. The second resolution here is that any dedicated space be named in consultation with First Nations elders. I just want to make sure that that resolution wouldn't come in conflict with the naming policy, which limits one name to one recreation space or amenity.
So just to be clear, as the recommendation as written is to receive this report.
Oh, excuse. Okay, I would like to direct staff first to follow through on the recommendation from the committee.
Okay, so I guess we'll open it up to questions, comments. Members of council, Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, well, I think that would need to come back as a report from staff to say how that would actually work itself out, because if any piece, and I'm assuming that's the intent, any piece of that complex that would be dedicated in any way, shape, or form would have to go through First Nations elders for their approval, then we would have to have that in our naming policy. So I think that I would want staff to come back with that direction for us to be able to do something like that, because we already know, and I think we'd had already either talked about it or given direction that the community center portion would already be named as we're transferring the name from the current Camille Pichet Hall to that one being named the Camille Pichet Hall. So I want to make sure that we're in line with everything, especially with this. So I guess my suggestion would be that staff come back with a report on that request, and that we direct staff tonight to come back with that report. If that would satisfy Councillor Deacon's request through her committee.
Councillor Deacon?
Looking for a clarification specifically on the naming aspect or the entire, I mean, it directs to explore partnerships. So would it be a report specifically on the naming aspect?
I was strictly talking about the secondary piece.
Okay, thank you.
I think the first piece, I think, is acceptable to me anyway, the first piece of that.
Okay. Perfect. So in that case, we'll have to pull this item out to make a slight amendment to highlight that piece. Okay. Next item is item I, Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, Recommendation 2023-005, KPI and Work Plan. The council received Recommendation 2023-005 dated November 6, 2023 from the Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee with respect to the committee's updated key performance indicators and work plan. Councillor Deakin?
No comment. This was shared for informational purposes for other members of council, as the committee is very active and we wanted to make sure folks were up to date.
Okay. Any questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add, Mr. Godet?
Merci, Mr. Mayor, not on this, but I think you skipped item H.
Nope, my apologies. I'll go back to item H. Okay. We're all good on this one? So item H, Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, Recommendation 2023-004, installation of a pride bench at the Recreation Complex. The council receives Recommendation 2023-004 dated November 6, 2023 from the Community Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee with respect to including a pride bench at the Rec Complex. Councillor Deakin? Anything to add?
Nothing to add in terms of the content of the recommendation. I would just like to move to accept the recommendation and propose it for
Okay.
action.
So we'll separate that item as well then. So item H. Item J, Comité consultatif sur la communauté, la diversité, l'équité et l'inclusion communautaire, recommandation 2023-006, modification proposée au plan stratégique du canton, que le Conseil reçoive la recommandation 2023-006 datée du 6 novembre 2023 du Comité consultatif communautaire sur la diversité, l'équité et l'inclusion concernant la modification du plan stratégique afin d'inclure un objet visant à améliorer la représentation des cultures et des connaissances des Premières Nations, des Inuits et des Métis. Councillor Deakin, did you want to speak to this one?
Yes, so I would like the council to consider actioning this as well. I can provide a bit more context. The outgoing CAO, we had a conversation in the late summer around the possibility of modifying this piece of, or making this amendment to the strategic plan based off of consultations that we had done with local First Nations, Métis, and Inuit residents. And so that is what we are proposing. Unfortunately, the committee itself only meets 4 times a year, so we were only able to action it at this point.
Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, I'm just interested to know, is the idea of amending the strategic plan now as opposed to maybe the idea of having it ready for next year's strategic plan. Is there, or is a 4-year plan, sorry. Yeah, so I'll withdraw that comment.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add from the administration? No? Okay. Moving on, item K, Teen Advisory Committee recommendation. Whereas council at its regular council meeting of October 10, 2023, received the recommendation 2023-001 dated September 14, 2023 from the Teens Advisory Committee respect to funding for the implementation of an annual forum for teens in the Township of Russell. And whereas council at its 2024 budget session further discussed the request for the funding of the 2024 annual teen forum, be it resolved that the Township of Russell Council allocate $2,500 for the 2024 annual teen forum to take place in May with the participation of 80 to 100 local teens. Funds will be utilized to cover programming, transportation, and food and beverage cost and for the engagement. Anything to add, Councillor Deakin? No? Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, and just to confirm, this was the item that we talked about in our budget session?
Yes,
The other
and
day?
we talked about the creation
The
of
creation of the fund,
a
which, and
committee
this was
fund,
this was like the,
the catalyst, if you will.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, members of council? Okay, hearing, seeing none. We'll move on to the next item. Item 12, reports from investigator and the ombudsman. We have none. Item 13, notice motion, Councillor Deakin, amendments to the Highway Traffic Act. And this we'll read it out loud, but the notice motion will only be considered at council's next meeting. So let me just bring it up. Subject amendment to Highway Traffic Acts, moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by myself. Whereas speeding on our roads is in a major concern in our community, and whereas barriers and delays to enforcement pose a danger to community, and whereas our municipality has limited resources to implement speed mitigation, road design, and redesign, and whereas our local police service has limited resources to undertake speed enforcement, and whereas Section 205.1 of the Highway Traffic Act, HTA, provides that automated speed enforcement systems, ASE, may only be placed in designated community safety zones and school safety zones, and whereas dangerous speeding can occur in areas of our community that are not community safety zones and school safety zones. And be it resolved that Russell Township Council supports the City of Cambridge resolution to amend Section 205.1 of the Highway Traffic Act to permit municipalities to locate ASC system permanently or temporarily on any roadway under the jurisdiction of municipalities and as determined by municipalities and not restricted to only community safety zones and school safety zones. And be it resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Ontario Minister of Transportation, the Ontario Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, local area MPPs, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So that's the notice of motion that will be discussed at our next meeting. With that, we are going to item 14, which is question period on the meeting of the day. Therefore, if you have any questions on everything except the last subject we discussed, I invite you to come to the lectern and ask your questions, please. Councillor Lorrain?
And just to clarify that the last subject we discussed being the land policy.
Yes.
The land sale policy.
That's correct.
Not, the notice of motion.
Correct. My apologies. Yes, sir. Oh, give us a second. We'll turn it on. So just reiterate for the record, name and address, please.
Augusta Books, 580 Route 100.
You haven't moved since then?
I haven't moved at all.
Okay.
I may want to. Question, when it comes to traffic cameras, do you see that as a revenue generator, or do you see that as ultimately slowing the traffic down? And two, how many accidents have we had as a result of speeders in Russell? Before you begin to recommend adding more cameras.
So I can say that I see it as a deterrent. The number one complaint I've been getting for my entire time on council is about speeding. And it even got more exacerbated. What's that term? Exacerbated, thank you. My French brain contradicting my English one. With the pandemic. We had a lot more activity during the pandemic of people going out and about. And so the fact of speeding has increased as far as community concerns dramatically.
And how do you monitor that speeding? How do you know this is happening?
How do we know?
Just complaints?
Oh, complaints to us, complaints to the OPP. I've seen it many a time. I think all of us have seen it. And we also have some speed radar signs that have been tracking numbers for us. So I think Monsieur Godin, Madame Bordeaux, we actually had a report to council. We're in discussions with the company. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. We do have discussions with a company to provide that service, and it will be coming to council shortly.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, because you probably didn't see that report, the signs it'll be clearly identified that there's a or a speed camera. So hopefully people are smart enough to not speed and not get a ticket.
And are you proposing just where you might want to put them?
It's in the report. If you would like to send us, any one of us an email, we can send you the report that was that put through.
Thank you, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Tarnowski?
I think there was just a question that wasn't answered was how much we make from tickets.
Oh, at this point in time, we have no idea because we don't have the system in place. But, I mean, the rates are established by the province.
I could suggest that
But-
check with the City of Ottawa to give you some idea as to what the revenue is from those cameras.
Yes, I'm aware of how it works in Ottawa. I'm more concerned with reducing the speed as opposed to making the money. Councillor Lorrain?
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, we've had many a delegation come to council regarding speeding in Russell Township, not just in Russell, but in Embrun. I can tell you through the 6 campaigns that I've done, that was the most talked about issue in subdivisions. That's why we created the community safety zones over the last, year or two?
Few years, yeah.
You know, is to help reduce the speed in our communities. You know, I think we all get emails, we all see social media posts all the time about speeding in all the community groups. So, you know, when asked, you know, about that, this has absolutely, in my opinion only, absolutely nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with the safety of our residents and young children that may be in the area playing and not realizing that their ball well into the road and that car is coming down at 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour in a 40 zone. So.
Bonjour, madame.
Hello, I'm Sharon Gunsel, 136 Edie Road. The question that I have, and I'm not sure, I think it pertains overall. I talked to you one time in the summer about it, was Le Reflet. We always got all our notifications from Le Reflet, and then it wasn't published for weeks. And there had been some meetings and there had been some notices, but we weren't aware of them. And we received the Ottawa Citizen and the Chesterville Record, and I asked, you know, where are you publishing changes and information? And so what are we
So,
to do now?
as I said earlier, sign up for the newsletter. And I mean, I understand we have limited papers in the area. The Reflet News, a bilingual paper, was established, or was council's decision back into the day. Why to put notices in that paper is because they are free for all the community. Now, I understand during the summertime that they do stop publishing for their employees. They shut down for a week or two. But I mean, if council wants to entertain advertising in the Citizen or advertising in another local paper that charges residents, I think that might make it more difficult for those residents who are not buying papers.
They are not delivering anymore, le droit. You have to go to Foodland, which I end up at Giant Tiger myself.
And that's why
once a week I have to drive somewhere to go and pick it up. It's not very good.
And that's why I'm suggesting that you sign up for the township, all the newsletters of the township. That way you can be kept up to date.
Yeah, we have a computer. Not everybody is going to be able to do that, though, and I thought by law things had to be published.
I think the law has changed in recent years to accommodate. I'm not sure, Madame Camille Laflamme, We do post in the paper, but as per the law, it doesn't say the paper has to be delivered to everybody's house. I don't think the law is that specific. We simply have to publish it. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. And it also, Planning Act might be different, like in Municipal Act, like it says to publish. but-
I'll leave
Yeah.
that.
Monsieur Boudreau, as-tu quelque chose à ajouter là-dessus?
That's also correct. And so there, we follow the Planning Act, which have been updated essentially to meet some of the
New
trend.
technologies.
Yes, and it's a challenge also to find the right newspaper that will deliver to the most amount of people concerned by whatever direction is being proposed. So.
Councillor Lorraine, then Councillor Deacon.
And it's not from a communication to the residents specifically, total wise, but in areas where the township, there's a planning situation within the township. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Boudreau, but the actual signage that we use to promote is actually larger than the minimum standards required by the Planning Act. Because I remember when I started on council, they were about this big and you had to walk right up to them to see what they said. Now that you can actually read them from the road, they're actually signs that are legible versus, and I think the counties need to make a little bit of more effort on that part. But the township, when it's a township matter, I think our signs are bigger, if we're not mistaken.
Monsieur Boudreau.
I can testify to that our signage is probably one of the best in the counties for that matter.
So perhaps at one point in time, we pass a resolution to send to the county levels that they up the standards of their signage to our standards.
I think that is an absolutely wonderful idea.
Yeah, we'll make sure to bring that. Councillor Deacon.
I just wanted to acknowledge that this is a challenge that's happening across Ontario, and there are several support motions circulating between municipalities around how to ensure that the word is getting out there. The act that this falls under currently requires that it be published in local newspapers, and even as recently as a couple days ago, I saw that North Glengarry got on board with the support motion saying, we just lost our local paper. Is there a way that we can be meeting the requirement by digital only? So that is the direction that many municipalities across the province are taking, is asking if they can meet those requirements through digital only. Your question's very well taken. Thank you.
Hello. Christine Gravel, Rice-Bill 144 Tweed in Russell. So I was actually happy when they did the construction project on Craig, because the traffic along Craig is insane. You cannot exit the subdivision.
So a question on the agenda.
Yeah, why don't you introduce strategically placed stop signs along Craig? There's a school crosswalk there.
Monsieur,
And we can't exit the subdivision during rush hour.
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon.
For what traffic study could be determined, or traffic counts, I should say, could be completed at that intersection, but stop sign can only be used when it's warranted. So
Yeah, we have to follow the provincial standards.
exactly, so not to slow down traffic or.
So could we get one of our
Yeah, we can have a traffic study, like a
traffic count for that area?
for that intersection.
I would appreciate it. There's a lot of housing going in. The population in Russell is increasing. A traffic study is warranted, and I think stop signs would be a better solution than traffic cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. Monsieur Bourgon.
Again, we never say it enough, a stop sign cannot be used to slow down traffic.
That's correct. Other questions?
Would the introduction of cameras require that your budget for bylaws enforcement be increased by one person to monitor all this and to issue tickets?
Monsieur Godin, Madame Bourdeau, as I said, we have a report. I can send you the report. A lot of the details were in the report, but Madame Bourdeau?
The company we are seeking provides all the services.
So no additional labor
additional-
required by the township?
No additional cost to the township. And if you're getting tickets, I suggest you slow down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Item 15, resolutions, motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item number 11, reports from departments and council committees. Need a mover and seconder to put it on the floor, and then we'll make an amendment to remove certain items. Moved by Councillor Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Ternosky. On avait certains items pour enlever.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so it was discussed about 11E, 11G, like George,
George, yep.
11H,
Yep.
and I think 11J,
J?
like Joanne.
Like Joanne. Parfait. GJ. Always confusing for a francophone. With that, so I need amendment to remove items E, G, H, and J from all these, from the consent. Moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Ternosky. All in favor of removing those? Amendment is carried. All in favor of approving everything else except those four? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So first item is item E, council remuneration, report CAO 07-2023. So we'll put on the floor, who wants to take a look first, or we can ask Monsieur Godin, any comments on the report?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So as council knows, we're undertaking a salary market study, and part of this was to evaluate council salaries as well. So this report is essentially to present council with the findings and to initiate a discussion as far as where we want to go for council salaries moving forward.
Okay. And just to clarify, this was initiated in 2022 and was discussed in budget 2023. We didn't know which direction we were going, but as part of the budget 23 process, that was included, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? Who wants to start off? Councillor Lorrain?
I'll start off and I'll just throw it on the table for discussion, is that council approves option number 2.
Option number 2, which is the $10,000 overall salary increase. This option suggests applying a $10,000 salary adjustment to the annual mayor's and councillor's salary. Mayor's salary will go from $57,000 to $67,000, and councillor's salary will go from $24,000 to $34,000. So we have Councillor Lorrain who's throwing option 2 on the table. Any other discussion, conversation? Anyone? Councillor Ternosky?
I'll support that.
Okay. So then, in that case, we have a mover and a seconder for option 2. Further discussion? Councillor Lorrain and Councillor Deacon? Or go ahead, Councillor Deacon.
Thanks. I'd just like to understand the formula that went into that recommendation, if possible.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a recommendation, it was just an option.
The option, the option.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So as we can see in the report, so we are showing council different levels of the results that were studied. So basically a P25, we're showing P25, P50, and P75 salaries. So what that means is under P50, for example, that would mean if we would go with that salary, it's a salary that represents more or even to 50% of the comparables. P75 would be, well, that's more than 75% of the comparables. So basically, we're showing the results. The numbers themselves are just amounts that fell within those different variances between the comparables. So we're just showing council's options for 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, and the P75 specifically. But that's just really to initiate the discussion to see as far as where council wants to go. So it could be a different number, it could be a different option that council chooses to go forward with. But we didn't necessarily want to make a recommendation on this, but just to initiate a discussion so that council can make a decision.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to clarify, when we're discussing this, we're not evaluating the person in the position, we're evaluating what the position itself is worth. Councillor Lorrain?
I would also like to add a second piece to that option, which will be that administration indexes this item to, or whatever word you use, to come back to council in an 8-year cycle. Because we did this in 2015, now we're doing it in 2023. I think an 8-year, 2-term cycle makes sense. And the logic behind that being, if we look at the chart, the custom survey results and analysis, when we did it in 2015, we said we would go to P60. And in that 8-year cycle, we are at maybe just slightly over P25. So we haven't grown and maintained that P60 level throughout the last 8 years, which is why I'm recommending the option number 2, which essentially is about middle of the road between the options that we're showing, to ensure that in 8 years from now, we're not back to P25. And they mean that 25th percentile of the area of the municipalities that are being studied, that we hold value to the position of the elected official in our township. We have to make sure that we continue that. Otherwise, at some point in time, no one's going to want the position. And we see that with declining numbers across the province, not just in our municipality. And you have to wonder why. And to me, this is probably one of the reasons. And I think we need to take that step now to ensure that we don't get to that point down the road. So that's why I'm proposing option number 2, with the bring forward in a 8-year cycle, and I hope council will agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ternosky?
So I would concur with Councillor Lorraine's kind of approach that we need a system, because certainly for the last, since I've been on council, we haven't had a system. And whether that system is counting households or using some sort of benchmark where we don't fall behind like we have, because we are definitely behind where we should be. And again, for the reasons you elaborated on, I would support some sort of system like that, just to ensure that this doesn't go through the same process and we're standing here and faced with an increase that seems really high at this stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Like the proposal, it was something that was done a few years back at the county level, where they went not a per household rent, but they went for a per resident rate. So that's looking at that option in the future is it's not unheard of. Councillor Ternosky?
So just to follow up, when we initially discussed this last year in the process, we had talked about per resident. My issue on the per resident is in terms of workload for a councillor, and feel free to jump in at any point. But in my experience, certainly it's a per household. I don't work harder the more residents there are in a household. And that's why I think the household piece is a good one. It's a more fair standard, because it's the residents. I get a call from a resident per household.
Yep, nope, completely understood. Understand the reasoning 100%. Councillor Deakin?
I support the rate going up, certainly, with the strategic plan objective of looking at everything through a diversity lens. This is certainly one of those opportunities to make the workplace here for councillors more equitable in terms of who is able to run, who has the privilege of standing for election and being chosen to serve their community in this way. I did have a question on the retroactive. It is recommended to be retroactive to the first pay period of 2023. I'd just like clarification on the second half of that part of the report. Our remuneration policy states it is council decision to implement any changes to the compensation in the second year of council's term. Does that mean that if we don't make it retroactive and we put it for January 1st, 2024, that's actually not allowed? That goes against the policy?
Thank you. Monsieur Godet?
Through Ms. Mayor, so it doesn't mean that it's not allowed. It's not allowed. Sorry. It's just a reference to policy and that demonstrating that this would be a normal practice.
Okay.
Councillor Lorrain?
And just so I'm clear, based on the report, is that the funds were put in the 2023 budget and are in a reserve, so that it would not have an impact on 2023 budget. Is that correct?
Monsieur Godet?
Through Ms. Mayor, so that's correct. So we do have a reserve dedicated for any adjustments made to salaries for.
Because we knew that there was something coming in that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further thoughts? Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, so I had originally had a sort of a modified version of option 2. I guess I won't get into it now since there is some pretty decent support, just to leave it as is, except that I might suggest that it not be retroactive because the increase, it represents about a 40% market adjustment for the councillor's salary. I'll just leave that aside for a sec, though, to just maybe mention that, as a rookie councillor, it's been a year, and I know there's been a bit of a learning curve, but by the same time, the business that I came out of, the training that I had for this job, certainly put me in good position to do the work that's here to do in terms of budget and all the rest of it that goes with it. Planning Advisory Committee, chairing 2 other committees, which I'm doing right now, on 3 committees, in fact, in total. I would say that it's been a sobering experience in terms of the amount of time that has to be spent in this job. I had estimated between 20 and 24 hours a week. It's been a lot more than that at times. So I think the salary level is certainly warranted, even though I don't have the years of experience behind this. But to Councillor Deacon's point, if we want to attract and retain some of the brightest people in the community to consider running for election and giving up their time for emergency meetings, special meetings, it seems like we have more special meetings at times than regular meetings, and you have to be ready to make that commitment. I see it as a calling some days to come to work on council more than it is a job. You have to be interested in service to the public. But by the same token, the amount of money that has been offered to this point, I don't think is commensurate at all with the level of responsibility we have, especially when you consider we're in a township that's grown 18% in the last 4 to 5 years. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I won't belabor the point, but I also, with regards to the increase to the mayor's salary at $10,000, I couldn't agree with that more. I've had the experience of being around the mayor for the last year. I think we'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that had as much dedication in terms of being available to the public almost on a 24/7 basis. And as far as trying to communicate and promote engagement and interest on the part of residents in the community through Facebook as well, I think in the case of the mayor, he's gone well above and beyond the call of duty. So I think these salary levels are absolutely justified. It's a bit awkward to say that because we're sitting in the position of council. It would be better for this to come from a consultant to say, this is what you guys need to be making. We have to sort some of this out tonight. We do have indications and references to use for that purpose, and I guess that'll be good enough with which to make the decision. So I agreed, after all said and done, I would agree with option 2 for sure. As far as the retroactivity, and because it's not breaking any rules, unless I hear some compelling arguments for why that would be needed, I would maybe support not going with the retroactivity.
Okay. So my suggestion is we have a mover and a seconder for option 2. We can put that on the table and vote on that. And if there's another amendment to be made, then it could be made to make a further adjustment. Councillor, Madame Camry-Laflamme?
I'm not sure I got the main motion, a mover, seconder, so maybe we want to do that before.
Oh, my apologies. So main motion, Councillor Lorrain, seconded by... No,
Nothing's been done yet.
Nothing yet. So we're just putting it on the table. So moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. My apologies.
Which is strictly option 2. And then once we do that, then I'll
No,
suggest...
this is in regards to, I guess I didn't get a mover and a seconder to put it on the table to begin with.
Oh.
So just to...
Okay.
It might have been missed. So we have that.
So amendment?
Amendment to option 2.
Amendment option 2 is me.
Yep. And Councillor Tarnowski.
If I can get clarification, if I remember correctly, you mentioned option 2 with added index.
I'll do. Let's put this through
Second.
first, and then we'll talk about this and
Make further amendments.
I'll make a further amendment after so that we get that, whatever that terminology is.
All right, so moved and seconded for the amendment. So any other questions on the amendment? So all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? So the amendment is carried. Now it's a time for further amendments to the amendment. Councillor Lorrain?
I ask that, that administration, whatever term you want to use, but gets this on some sort of a cycle. I suggested an 8-year cycle, 2 terms. But that's what I'm going to propose, that administration bring this back every 8 years to council for review and an update as needed. Now, if we want some sort of a strategy put in place, maybe we direct staff to do that outside of an amendment, so to ensure that it does come back every 8 years to council.
So in that regards, I'll just say quickly, I believe we do have the policy that it's in the second year of a term of council every 4 years. Currently, Monsieur Godin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think you're right. I think it is every 4 years. We do conduct the staff market salary every 4 years, so it wouldn't be very complicated to add council to that. If it's preferable to have it every 8 years, that's fine as well. But
well, then let's just add council to, let's give the direction to add council to that every 4 years, and we can give direction as well to bring back some sort of a report on how they recommend that they're going to do that for that study, whether it's per household, per person, or just continue with numbers and market adjustments. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I do not need a second adjustment, a second amendment.
Just a direction,
Yeah.
that something we would like to see. Okay. Any other further amendments? If there is no, Councillor Deacon?
Just wondering where we're at on the retroactive question. Does that require an amendment?
That would require an amendment, yes.
Because we're being recommended to make it retroactive?
Yes, as per standard practice, it's to retroactively go back to January 1st. If we don't want to do that, then somebody has to make an amendment to change that.
And that's not just council stuff. That's usually when we do these market studies, Mr. Godin, correct me if I'm wrong, staff and council, that usually is the practice.
Monsieur Godin?
through Ms. Mayor, so yes, it is normally, because we did hand out this contract to do this study in 2022, so the intention was for this to be included initially in the 2023 budget, and that's why we did budget for a kind of
an adjustment.
An adjustment, if you will.
Okay.
And just a follow-up question, remind me, this would be starting, if we didn't make it retroactive, it would be starting right away, or January 1st, 2024?
We'd have to make that change in
We'd
the
have to make that
recommendation.
change. I think it was expressed earlier, but I'll just express it as I understand as well, that I would prefer that it not be retroactive to the first pay period of 2023. The work's been done, the commitment's been made, and I would like to see this rate going forward, but I would not make it retroactive to.
Okay, so we have a mover for that. Do we have a seconder? Second?
Second for.
Yep, so now it's on the floor. Further discussion? Yep. No. Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? So we have a mover and a seconder to not go retroactively, but make it, sorry, I didn't catch it. Did you say January 1st or effective immediately?
I don't think I specified. Did I specify?
So we want to
Sorry, madam.
did you want to make it effective, like we're talking about?
We could say effective immediately.
Effective immediately. So a mover and a seconder that it's not being retroactive, it's effective immediately. Moved and seconded. Do we have further discussion on this item? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Now, so we have with, I don't think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, any further amendments? If there's no further amendments, we will vote on the entirety of it as amended. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Oh, it's a long time. Next item is item G. Which is the community diversity, equity, inclusion in regards to landscaping design at the rec complex. So I need a mover and a seconder put on the table. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. Questions, comments, amendments?
Which one is that one again? Just to remind
In
me.
regards to the landscaping.
Yes. Let me just pull it up here.
It's
That
more-
the second piece of that resolution, that any dedicated space for such an undertaking at the recreation complex be named in consultation with First Nations and elders, that we direct staff to bring back a report on how that would fit within our naming policy.
So my suggestion is we remove that section completely, and then we just give verbal direction to the staff to bring that forward. It'll be easier.
Works for me.
Is everybody, so I need a mover and a seconder, so moved by Councillor Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Deacon, to remove the last line from the resolution. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Mr. Godin, you have the direction to bring something back in that regards. As, I'll call for the vote as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried.
Can I make a statement?
Yeah. Councillor Lorrain?
I just want to say how I do appreciate and thank the committee and Councillor Deacon for this resolution. I think it's a great idea, and I think it should be included in our policies, and we should be considering that going forward. So, great job with the committee.
Perfect, thank you. Next item is item H, which was that council receive recommendation 2023-004 dated November 6, 2023, from the committee with respect to including a pride bench at the recreational complex. So mover and seconder put on the floor, moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Questions, comments on that one? Or amendments? Councillor Deacon?
Sorry, just a point of clarification. Do I need to amend it to action it?
So currently, it's just to receive the recommendation. So, so in the resolution from the committee itself, it states that the Russell Township Committee recommends that the Township of Russell Council direct administration to include the installation of a Progress Pride bench at the future recreational complex. So I think.
This is a direction again.
Yeah, so we can simply make an amendment to give that direction. We can give the direction verbally, or if you want it in the recommendation. Either way, it's fine.
Just direct.
Just direction. So Councillor Lorrain?
That's what I was going to suggest, that the administration work in conjunction with the committee to see what type of bench. I don't know if it's a specific type of bench, but that some sort of a recognition bench be included somewhere within the actual recreation complex, and that we work with the committee to, because we may say that, well, the bench can look just like this and we put a little plaque on it. No, the bench should look
like the flag
in a specific way.
That's what I had in my mind anyways.
So let's include that committee in it,
Okay.
as what I'm saying.
All right, so is everybody okay with giving direction? Councillor Lalonde?
Just a question. Is the interest to have it outside in the garden area or whatever it's called, or is it anywhere in or outside the complex?
Was there a specification, Councillor Deacon?
The committee raised concern that the location should be where a security camera can see it, frankly, for vandalism.
Okay.
That was
so-
the only specification beyond the look of
Yeah,
it.
so it could be outside. Yeah, because we will have security cameras outside, so, okay. With that, so Monsieur Godin, direction that we would like to see that included in the future recreational complex. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item was J, which was the proposed changes to Township Strategic Plan. The council received recommendation 2023-006 dated November 6, 2023 from the Community Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee with respect to amending the Township Strategic Plan to include an objective to enhance the representation of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis cultures and knowledge. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. Questions, comments, or amendments? None on this one? Oh, Councillor Deacon?
I would like to move that we action this recommendation. Be it resolved that Russell Township Council amend the strategic plan to include an objective relating to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis cultural representation and knowledge, and that the objective read as follows. As written, the township will enhance the representation of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis cultures and knowledge through public space curation, events, partnerships, and asset naming where possible.
Okay, so my suggestion is that, because essentially you just read what the resolution was. That,
Indeed.
Right, so how about that, that council receive and approve recommendation 2023-006?
Sounds great.
Yeah, so and approve, Madame Camille-Lafemme, you're okay with that? So we have a mover, do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Lalonde, questions on the amendments? Councillor Tarnowski?
So I support in principle the amendment. Is just in adding this to the strat plan, just an understanding from staff, the impact and kind of discussion with staff to see what the impact is at this point to do this.
Yeah. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. So I think the addition and removal of items from the strat plan is appropriate. It is a 4-year plan, so things change, and we do have consultations and discussions where other initiatives would be appropriate to add. So I have no issues in adding it. We'll probably want to touch base with the committee just to have more input as far as what we're looking specifically to do, what the committee is going to be doing versus what the administration is doing, and as far as if there's any KPIs or measurables to see exactly if we've attained this objective. But as far as the question on adding items to the strat plan, that's not an issue. And when we do report back to council on a progress report of our objectives, we will include this one here and report on what's been done.
Okay. Any other further questions or comments? So we have an amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment? Carried. All those in favor as amended? Carried. Next item is item 16, bylaws. Motion that council approve bylaws 2023-131 to 2023-134 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 17, new business, we have none. Item 18, other business presented by council members. Myself, request from Prescott Russell Coalition to End Violence Towards Women. Yes, that's me. Give me 1 second. I just need to pull up the email. I have too many emails. In essence, there was a presentation at the United Counties from the coalition coalition of different organizations in Prescott Russell to End Violence Against Women. There was a declaration that was made 10 years ago at the county level, and they were asking all the mayors if we would have space to plant a tree or allow them to plant a tree and a plaque in recognition, a place that they can have future vigils. We know there's a vigil coming up in a few municipalities on December 6th. So obviously this was requested at the county level, but I can't make that decision on behalf of council here. That's why I'm bringing it to the table. My suggestion was just to give them a little bit of space to plant a tree right next to the cenotaph area. We have areas there, and I think we have La Bombe de la Liberté. We would have that there, unless there's suggestions on other locations, but I'm just looking for support if we can give them that space. Councillor Tarnowski?
Just voicing my support.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? Everybody's good with that? Yeah, okay, so I'll send an email out to the organization and tell them we have a space for them and to move that forward. Thank you very much. Item 19, public consultations hearings. We have none. Item 20, did anyone have any, Councillor Lorrain?
I would just like to express or acknowledge publicly the Recreation Department for their quick action yesterday regarding the Russell Arena. Some people may not know, but the compressor went on at the arena yesterday, and through their quick action of ensuring nobody was on the ice, ensured that the ice didn't split, and they were able to fix it at that point in time to ensure that the slab was available later this evening or today to the public, and that we didn't lose the ice, which could have very easily been done had they not done so very quickly. And I just wanted to say thank you to them for their quick actions yesterday. So, great job.
Thank you very much. Pass along our congratulations to the team, and thank you, Madame Guital, for ensuring that happens.
Thank you. I will make the message. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Czernoski?
Fait qu'on fait ça chaque année, mais j'aimerais reconnaître tous les membres de l'équipe qui ont fait la parade de Noël possible. It was, as it is always, the parades are a highlight for when we get to participate, and seeing the joys and the pleasure in all the community is just absolutely heartwarming. So thank you for everyone supporting that.
Yeah, it was the 2 best days of the year for this job. The parades, I just love them. It's a great time. Councillor Deacon?
Agreed. I just wanted to point to 2 things that are coming up. As Mayor LaRue mentioned, there is a vigil on December 6th in Castleman. I think it starts around noon for those wishing to observe the day commemorating the death of all of those women at Polytechnique de Montréal, the murder, frankly. And I also wanted to, on a lighter note, to say break a leg to the Russell's Performing Arts group, which is starting their showing of Bob's Your Elf on November 29th.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anything else? Councillor Lalonde?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next council meeting won't take place until December 11th, and so I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to recognize and celebrate Persons with Disabilities Day, which is this coming Sunday, December 5th. And StatsCan reminds us that 1 in 5 Canadians over the age of 15, or 6.2 million Canadians, had at least one disability. Many of those disabilities are invisible and very diverse in nature, whether physical, sensory, cognitive, or mental health related. Persons with disabilities continue to face discrimination, incur many additional expenses, and often encounter barriers to finding meaningful and well-paying jobs. We must continue to build a municipality that is future-free of barriers and where our residents with disabilities have every opportunity to thrive. Je suis fier du travail des membres de notre comité consultatif sur l'accessibilité qui se réunit régulièrement pour discuter et proposer des idées et recommandations qui améliorent l'accessibilité dans notre communauté. Je suis touché par leur passion et dévouement. Je suis également fier de faire partie d'un conseil qui prend au sérieux les propositions et commentaires de ce groupe de résidents bénévoles. Je veux aussi reconnaître l'aide de notre personnel administratif qui nous aide à préparer nos réunions et qui apporte souvent des informations et suggestions sur l'accessibilité qui nous aident dans notre travail en comité. Finally, I want to take the opportunity to celebrate one of the long-serving members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, Patrice Picot-Dagenet. Picot, along with his wheelchair rugby teammates, won themselves another silver medal for Canada last week at the Parapan Games in Santiago, Chile. And Picot remains a source of inspiration to our Accessibility Advisory Committee on many levels. So this Sunday, let's make sure to take a moment to reflect on our much-valued residents living with disabilities. They live, work, and volunteer in our neighborhoods, and we are a better township because of them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward. Normally, this is the week that members of council, when there's the opportunity, PICO and the accessibility team put on a murder ball game that we can participate in. Obviously, with PICO being out of town, that's not happening. But next year, I'm hoping that we are able to restart that tradition and have a good time doing it. Any other announcements? No, we'll move on to the next item, which is strategic discussion. So this is the first time we're actually using this, and it's in regards to the doctor initiative. we're not looking to make decisions. We're just looking to have a brainstorming session, if you will. We all know that earlier this year, Dr. Debani made a presentation to council in regards to the current shortage and potential further shortage of doctors in our community. Obviously, with the expanded growth that we're seeing, it's becoming more and more of a problem. You know, part of that discussion was what role township could play in helping to alleviate that. We have held an open house. There is a public-led committee that is moving forward, trying to discuss the matter and brainstorm and see what's possible. I thought it was, I received an email last week that I thought would kick off this discussion. I received an email from a new doctor in the area that started at the Embrun doctor's office earlier this year. She's currently on maternity leave, and she's planning to start back up at the practice in March of, I believe March or May 2024. One of the struggles she's finding is daycare services. And she's reaching out to see if there's anything the township can do. Because obviously if she doesn't have daycare services for her kids, then she can't do her job of being a doctor in our local community. So she's looking for Francophone daycare services. Now, we do provide that service at our local schools. Obviously, there is a waiting list of, I'm not sure if you know the exact number on the waiting list, Madame Guital, but it's quite a few. So it was just to have a discussion to see how do we want to address these type of issues. Madame Guital, out of curiosity, how many people on the waiting list?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We had over 700 names. I'm not sure just for the Francophone schools. Obviously, it's the whole.
Yeah. So it's well, with growth comes growing pains, right? Even though we've increased our daycare services dramatically by taking over 2 schools in Russell Township, that is still a challenge. So, it brought up the question again, what role does township want to play? You know, we've been, ever since this delegation came, I've done a lot of research to see what other municipalities are doing. Some are, you know, some municipalities are providing housing or some are providing vehicles. I'm like, I don't want to go there. But at a township level, what could we do to show some meaningful impact and try and address this problem? So I think it was just to have a brainstorming session, give some feedback, and possibly ask staff to bring back some kind of report that would provide options. You know, when I look at our facilities, we have daycare. Do we prioritize daycare services for doctors? You know, essentially making them skip the line. That could be a challenge for some who are waiting for those daycare services, but chances are they're also waiting for a family doctor. You know, do we provide walking passes or gym passes or some kind of discount to our programming? You know, in regards to the daycare, you know, they're not asking for free daycare. They're going to pay their share. They're just asking to be able to go to the front of the line so they can get back to work doing daycares. So it was just opening that discussion up with members of council to see, you know, what the thoughts are of everybody, and, you know, give some kind of information to Monsieur Godin and his team to try and bring back a report to see this is what the administration thinks is a possible option. So just opening it up. Councillor Deacon?
I'm excited to participate in this first strategic discussion. I'm really glad that we're putting these on the agenda. I think that one of the things that comes to mind immediately is the systems view that we have at the municipality, the local system, and where the tensions are in demand and supply, in terms of labor market, in terms of other ways of attracting people to this community with the skills that they have. One of the things that I would point to is the committee itself. I know that Dr. Debene and some folks who were involved in some early discussions were talking about those different sort of incentives that could support more doctors to come this way. So I would, if we were to direct administration to make a report, I would encourage that actually reflect largely what the community committee is recommending the municipalities to do. I don't know if that's a chicken and egg situation and they want to know what we can do, and but I think even if there's a little bit of a dance there, that would be a good way to go for inputs. And on a larger systems level, I think that there's obviously a lot that we can be doing to alleviate some of those socioeconomic tensions, especially that are starting to affect our community and that aren't going to be going away anytime soon.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts? Councillor Tarnowski?
So it's a great discussion point, and what comes to mind right away for me is that I would certainly seek more guidance and advice from staff on this. I'm always concerned when we do something like this where someone gets a privilege over someone else, and certainly the ability to have more doctors is an important one. But then do we say that when we have a new police officer coming in, or name any other position that will have an impact on our local community? So I would need to really see what's being done out there, to look at our options and try to have some sort of system that would somehow kind of make me feel more comfortable that there's a system in place, as opposed to, okay, we're doing it for this person as an exception and we'll never do it again. Because it has to stand to public scrutiny for sure.
Thank you. I think it's definitely, whatever direction we decided to go, it would have to be in a policy. So staff have clear direction as to what standards they're putting in place. Councillor Deakin?
This is a bit of a rhetorical question, but my son is 3 years old and he's looked after by a mother who struggles to get daycare for her kids. So are we prioritizing daycare spots for daycare workers?
That's a good point. It's an interesting point, right? From an organizational standpoint, do we want to prioritize our staff when it comes to daycare? Because if we find ourselves in a situation where, as you mentioned, we're struggling for daycare workers, and if we have a daycare worker who's coming back from maternity leave and she can't find a space, that's a challenge in itself. Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, we've had that question before for any staff that wants to come back to work, let's say at the daycare or here, even a township, where we have a very hard time for the hiring and the retention. And then you also have the families that already have a child at the daycare who wants to also have priority because they already have a child in the system. So there are a lot of requests out there. So definitely, if we want to go in that route, we would definitely have to establish some kind of a policy.
Yeah. To quote one of my favorite TV shows, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or even the one. So, I mean, it can be very challenging. So, further discussion, Councillor Lalonde.
Okay, brace yourselves. Public, administration, council, get ready. So just to make this short, though, this is a powerful subject for me. And Councillor Deakin and I, as some of you may know, we struck a brand new committee at Township this year called the Affordable and Attainable Housing Committee. And we're about to put the final touches on a report that should be ready in about a week or so from now for council's consideration. Something very interesting that has developed in the course of doing the research that we've been doing in our township. And we've certainly uncovered some pretty urgent situations in terms of affordable housing for seniors and low-income wage earners. But more important than that, what it has pointed to is really the need for an overarching model review, if you will, or model system. We talk about policy at the admin level. I think what I'm going to get at now is something even above that, in the sense of looking at the whole thing through a brand new lens. When we talk about daycare, and thank goodness Township saw fit to step into that area, which was in dire straits in terms of not being able to serve even the entry-level requirements of the communities. Whether we realized it or not, we were stepping into social services, the delivery of social services, and good on us for doing that. It's very unorthodox for a municipality to dip its toe into that area. We're normally managing arenas and baseball diamonds and what have you. So what we're talking about right here, even, and I know I'm taking this particular situation and sort of running with it, and it's not that we're going to try and treat the symptom here rather than the problem, as you hear that reference often used. I think we're trying to face the challenge, but in fact it's at a higher level than just seeing what we do with a doctor who needs daycare, or residents in a fast-growing community who need a doctor. So what it boils down to right now, and what Lisa, Councillor Deacon, and I have discovered, is that we're really talking about community wealth development. We can't be thinking about economic development where we're building a lot of houses, which we need to do, but only to recognize that we have a small clinic in Russell that still only has 3.5 doctors in it. So if we continue doing the one without addressing the other, we're going to end up sending all our residents into Ottawa and hospitals for healthcare services, rather than dealing with it as we grow daycare professionals to the area because they can't find affordable housing or rental apartments. We aren't being strategic, and we're missing the bigger picture. And the same goes for, we talked about the doctor. If we manage to build more homes faster and our resident population increases another 18% over the next 5 years, like it has the last 5 years, then what are we doing about the clinic in Russell, as an example, with still 4 doctors in it? Again, we're not being strategic, and we're missing the bigger picture. So I think tonight gives me the opportunity to have everybody consider for the very first time that we need to stop talking about economic development by itself. I don't think that's going to work anymore going forward with the social services and the daycare and the healthcare, and Dr. Devaneh, who made a passionate presentation to us. We're going to have to join that economic development with community development. If they're not done in tandem, if they're not linked together, we are going to end up with a terrible imbalance here sooner than later. We're actually starting to live the first moments of it now. So I would just leave it there and leave off on the idea of maybe thinking about this at 3,000 feet instead of down at the level of the doctor looking for the daycare. And does she go first because she's a doctor? Because if she does go first, then the 12 people waiting to see her as a doctor get to see her. And start thinking about, a little higher up the ladder, which is, so what do we want this community to look like going forward in terms of how we balance social services and social infrastructure development with economic development? And I'm lucky that it was over a year ago I sort of talked to the mayor about some of these ideas for a very first time, and he was actually receptive to the conversation, and here we are a year later. But I will end it by saying we're going to want to have this discussion at a higher level than just the doctor and the spaces in social, in child services or daycare services. We're going to have to work at it at a higher level than that. How much do we need? Where do we need to start? Why should we start there? How big should the center be? How do we look at daycare going forward? How do we get up to speed with what needs to be done? Do we know how much needs to be done? Do we know how much more daycare we actually need? Do we need our own building? Do we need more buildings? Something I would just like us all to consider a little bit. It's something that'll be explained in greater detail, because it comes into play with affordable housing in the report that we hope to deliver shortly. So I just leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you very much. Great thoughts. You know, as you mentioned, you know, we're at a stage where we've concentrated on material infrastructure for a very long time because the community wanted their rec complex, right? That's what we were aiming for. But after that, you know, what's the next step? The next step is, and nobody really saw it coming, was the social infrastructure aspect. Municipality getting pulled into daycare services because the private sector essentially left, a lot of people left that industry because of the realities of the job, right? And how do we, you know, doctors at the municipal level, never thought about the doctors, right? Should we have been thinking about it? Potentially, but again, it's an area that municipalities, especially municipalities our size, never, lower tier, you know, that's an upper tier responsibility at the county level. So even at the county level, there has to be those strategic discussions on what roles are we paying. Obviously, it's always a challenge is the resources, right? Everybody's pulling on every corner of the blanket trying to get those resources. Our job is a difficult job to determine where are we prioritizing as a council and as a community. But no, these are the types of discussions we have to have.
Maybe just one last challenging statement here is that in that sense, I don't want to forget what I said earlier about economic versus community development. I don't know, and I would challenge staff and admin and our new CAO, young, energetic, a visionary, to really
no pressure
to really rethink the idea of, you know, an economic development department here, as opposed to what I would actually propose tonight be considered as a community and economic development department, because of the things that I just said. There is so much, you know, we're talking about interdependence now, not independence one from the other, but interdependence. Our economic vision has to be tied to, there's no question in my mind, to a community development or community wealth development. So I'll just leave that there. I mean, we're really talking about a paradigm shift here, so make no mistake about it. It's not about tweaking this or fixing that. It's really about a paradigm shift and whether we want to go there.
Okay. Other comments, members of council? It's a great discussion. Councillor Tarnowski?
I'd just like to recognize that effort and the thoughts that came out of that. I think it's brilliant, and I like that direction. It is a major shift, and it is typically not in our territory to look at some of these things, but it only makes sense that we do now, given those challenges that are faced. So I applaud that, and I look forward to more discussions in that, and I definitely am looking forward to this report coming up in regards to the affordable housing.
Yeah. Oh, well said. Councillor Deakin?
I can't put it better than it's already been said, but I did want to give a tangible piece to this idea of how to move towards this paradigm shift, as Councillor Lalonde referred to it. Often when you're doing strategic planning, you come up with all of these strategic objectives and you say, oh great, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. The interplay between those strategic objectives is often missed. If we're doing this, if we're going hard on this objective, does that mean we're taking something away from this other objective? And having the community wealth aspect, the community prosperity seen not just as economic, but also social and well-being related, would help to make visible those places where some of those strategic objectives that we're trying to work towards could currently be working against each other.
Yeah, good point. I think there's also the reality that our strategic plan, even though we worked very hard on it, has to be a living document. We have to be able to evolve, adapt as necessary when we have those conversations. So, you know, just because it's in a strategic plan today, you know, it might be coming out of these type of strategic thoughts and directions that we decide, you know what, something is taking priority over something else. And that might be the direction we'll go in. So, just I appreciate council's thought process and of being open and having these discussions. Because without these discussions, we get tunnel vision, and I think that can be a hindrance to moving things forward. So we have some big projects on the go, but obviously we have to look beyond the next 3 years. We have to look for the next 10 years, 15 years. As we have these discussions, obviously we have to bring the public along to make sure that the vision we have and develop is in conjunction with our residents. Like I mentioned earlier, 15 years ago, they had a vision plan. And we've been sort of going in that direction. Now it's time to most likely revisit that and make sure that we're still on the path that we want to be as a community. So with that, Monsieur Godin, I think there's some discussion here, and you kind of get a feeling what we're looking for. I'm not looking for a report at the next council meeting, that's for sure. I anticipate that it would be something that could come back in the new year to be able to discuss options in regards to the smaller things, but as well as the bigger vision.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So definitely we took a lot of notes, and we'll have some discussions internally and probably with some of you to get further input on the vision there. I appreciate your comment about the strat plan being a living document. As I mentioned earlier about the objectives, there has to be a certain flexibility there. I would push that we remain loyal to the strategies that were developed, which I don't think go against what's being proposed here, so it's not an issue there. So we will have some discussions, and we'll be bring a report back to council at some point in time. And I also look forward to seeing the report prepared by the Affordable Housing Committee, just to provide further inspiration.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. I think that was a great first strategic discussion on the agenda. So. With that, item 22, pursuant to sections 239, 2.3, and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25. Motion to move into closed session at the hour of 8:52 p.m. to address matters pertaining to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider matters relating to 1. Salary Market Study Report CS 11-2023 under Section 2D, Labor Relations or Employee Negotiations. Item 2, closed session minutes of the Special Council meeting of November 2nd, 2023, and the regular council meeting of November 14th, 2023. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All in favor of going into closed session? All opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone.